Everybody, and welcome to another wonderful edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. I am so pleased on this episode to be talking with artist and author Nicole Goux. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
A pleasure. Did I get your last name
You got
pronounced
it right.
correctly?
Yeah,
Perfect,
great
perfect.
job. You didn't even ask beforehand.
I,
I'm very
I
impressed.
know. I try. I try. Glad that worked out well. So I have to tell you, we were talking about Dave Baker a little bit before I hit the recording button, and he and I were
Mhm.
just talking about the amazing artist that you are, talking about how you can draw like a bunk bed, and it's like, oh, that's beautiful, that's amazing. Um,
He's very sweet.
yeah, yeah. The two of you have several books out together that I'll mention that folks should check out. One of those being Forest Hills Bootleg Society.
Mhm,
And then, of course, one of those also being, off the top of my head, that's Everyone is Tulip.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So several wonderful works out there. I'm an educator, so I won't say the name of one
Yeah.
of them, but love the
Understandable.
title. Yeah, the F off squad. You're welcome to say the words. But that way I don't have high school students that are like, ah. But yeah, wonderful things. And you also have, I'll mention Shadow of the Batgirl, which
Yes,
is
for DC.
like a YA DC type of book.
Superhero book. Yeah, yes. Cassandra Cain's origin story.
And enjoyed that one a great deal. Love your art style and the way that it carries across into that universe as well as Star Trek. You have some Star Trek
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
that's in
Dave and I are very big Star Trek nerds, so that was kind of like a little bit of a dream to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So I have to ask, this is not on the list, so you're welcome to pass if you want, but are you into any of the new things that are out there in Star Trek lore? Because I gotta tell you, I was rocking some Picard about a month ago.
Yeah, actually, so we just finished Picard like last week, actually, and I was not excited about the first two seasons. I will be
Yeah,
very honest. They
yeah.
were not for me. I was not super thrilled about the choices that they made. However, season three is not a perfect season, but it is what it should have been from the beginning. Like I was just so thrilled to see everybody back and have
Yeah.
those relationships and the comedy in the same way that it was in TNG. And I'm not someone who never wants anything to change, but I do want it to still feel like Star Trek, you know?
Right, right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, there were things that I appreciated about the first two seasons, but they went right home with the nostalgia factor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which look, that's what we're all here for anyway. So
We love the stories we love.
yeah.
Um, so that's a bit of a side note though, because we're here to talk about your work, and I always like to ask about what the comics medium affords you as an artist. What is it about comics that you go, oh yeah, this is the thing that I want to do?
Yeah, I think for me it's about communication. Um I really I went to school to be an illustrator, editorial illustrator, or really anything anyone would hire me to draw for. And that I explored that world a little bit, and I still would like to do that some more. But when I started making comics, which was actually not until after college, and I was able to go to Zine Fest and comic shows, and having made my own Xerox zine or made some story of our own, and to be able to take that story, a printed version of that story, hand it to someone and have them take it home and read it and love it.
Mhm.
Um, it's it's a high like I had never experienced before, where it's
Yeah.
just, oh, it's not like someone buying your work off a gallery wall. That's nice. It's very cool, actually. But you get to face with so many people who are experiencing your work, taking
Mhm.
something that you have created and taking it into their homes and really enjoying it. And that to me is really what art is about. You want to have that connection with the viewer. And I made a lot of work that nobody has ever seen.
Mhm.
And that's great and fun and fulfilling in a certain way, but it is not the same as sharing that experience with other human beings.
Yeah, and I imagine you get a lot of readers out there that connect with you in one way or another, either through conventions or
Hmm.
web spaces and things like that. So it's an ongoing
Yeah.
conversation.
It is. And, Dave and I kind of built our career on going to conventions and talking to both um, readers and peers, and having that community around comics that I just never really felt in other art spaces is really just so fulfilling.
So what was your entry point like? Was that web comics, or some other way of getting into the medium?
Yeah, I mean, I've read comics since I was a little kid. I used to every single day after school read the newspaper strips. Um, and for some reason in my head, that never really even connected to me as comics until I was older. Like I knew I was reading the comic section, of course. But I was reading like Garfield and Foxtrot and whatever was in the paper. And but my brother read American superhero comics, and to me that was comics, and I never
Mhm.
really engaged with that as a kid. Um, and then when I was a preteen, I started reading manga, and I got really into manga for probably like 6 years, something like that. And then I actually fell out of it completely. I wasn't reading comics almost at all for all of my college years, and it wasn't until after school that I was able to go to, I think my first one was LA Zine Fest,
Mhm.
and be able to see that people were making comics in so many different styles about so many different things, and that the options were just completely unlimited. And you were not stuck in just American superhero style or just manga style or just newspaper strips. And all of that stuff was out there the whole time. I just
Mhm.
kind of, I grew up in a very suburban area where there wasn't a lot of like indie zine kids making cool stuff, or not ones that I knew. And so I just didn't have access to that until that point, really. And it really opened the world up for me and was a way like, oh, I can just make what I'm making, but be able to tell these stories with it. And that changed everything for me. So when David, it was really like I went to a zine fest and David and I started making comics together, like really short things. And I was like, oh, this is what I could do.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing what is possible in comics.
Yeah.
I'm impressed just since I've started doing this show, how many people uh, automatically mention newspaper comics because it was something I had forgotten about too. I used to read
Yeah.
those all the time, but for some reason in my mind it was like Batman 1988, those kind of things
Mm-hmm.
that pulled me
Yeah.
in first.
But like it is visual storytelling in almost its most simple form, right?
Hmm.
It's a 3 panel strip. You get a setup, a joke, and then a payoff, and
Yeah,
um, it's really where we kind of learn the basics of that storytelling process.
yeah, absolutely. And so you've collaborated with Dave Baker quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um, And so now you have Pet Peeves, which
Mm-hmm.
is more of a you as the author and the illustrator. So what was it like to sort of take on both roles in that way for this book?
Yeah, I think one of the things that stopped me from making comics on my own for a really long time was a lack of self-confidence in my writing. And so I, before this book, had written some shorts. I've written some mini comics, and I did a short Gem and the Hologram story,
Hmm.
and I've done a bunch of zines, but I had never written anything that I would consider like a book,
Hmm. Hmm.
40 plus pages. And I had been working on Everyone is Tulip and Shadow of the Batgirl at the same time for like 2 years. And I was really burnt out on doing things for other people. And both of those books were digital. And I really wanted to go back to a more traditional style, and be able to work on paper and have a big stack of books or a stack of pages at the end of the book process. And I just can't really do that for books that have deadlines on because I'm not fast enough. So I wanted to stretch my storytelling skills and do this fun side experiment just for myself. I really wasn't even intending on publishing it, or I wasn't sure if I was going to publish it when I started. And it was supposed to be 20 pages. which is very funny to me that I thought that I could tell this story in 20 pages because I think I think if you can tell a story in 20 pages, it's actually very impressive because it's harder to express what you want to say in a really short amount of time and make people care about your characters. And I think I care so much about character and so much of what I connect with in story. I'm not an action person. I'm not a like sometimes not even a plot person. I'm a character person and I love
Mhm.
learning about characters through their actions, through their likes. And I really wanted to spend some time doing that with this because that's the type of storytelling I like. And so I thought I could do that in 20 pages. And I just realized very quickly that that was not enough. Uh, and so it ballooned from 20 pages to I think it's 94 now.
Yeah, yeah.
And it took a lot longer because I am also a very external deadline um, driven person. So having no deadlines and no structure for this was kind of like, oh, okay, well, I could work on that. I have some free time, but I could also, go roller skating or be on my phone for a couple hours,
Right,
like
right.
really, really productive stuff. I mean, the roller skating would actually be good, but um, it's very easy to be like, oh, I can just do that later, or I don't really feel like doing that when you have no external forces telling you need to finish something. And I'm actually really productive and really good at hitting deadlines when someone else is telling me I have a deadline. So
Yeah.
it did take longer because it was just an entirely self-driven project, and that's not necessarily my strong suit. But I think it was really, really good practice because I want to make more work like this.
I'm glad to hear that it's the first of many such things to come,
I hope so. Yeah, I can find the time around my other giant projects that I'm doing.
which I suppose is a good problem to have. That's
It's
a
a
good thing.
very good problem to have, much better than the alternative.
I'll hat tip the publisher, Avery Hill. I can't remember. Is it Avery Hill? Did I get that
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. I can't remember how I stumbled upon them. I'm one of those people that sort of just haunts like Amazon recommendations and
Mm-hmm.
NetGalley and things like that. But I think the first book I read from them was Breakwater, and I've
Mm-hmm.
just continued to discover. I discovered Zoe Thorogood through them, and
Yeah.
I've read some Tilly Walden through them, although I knew Tilly before. So they publish really
Mm-hmm.
good things, and I'm glad to
Yeah.
see Pet Peeves come out from them because they tend to they do a really good job with what they publish.
They do, and it's been kind of a dream because when I started making this project, I was kind of like, if I was going to publish this with anyone, I think I would like Avery Hill. And
Okay.
then that's what happened. I was like, this is crazy. This is like the dream publisher for this project, and they have been so wonderful through the entire process. They're so attentive. It's a small slate of books, so they have the time to pay attention to each book and to care about their creators. And like they sent me a plant uh for my publication day. Amazing. No one has ever sent me a plant before. Like they're just really great. The whole team has been wonderful, and they're putting so much effort into the book.
And I'll tag them as well when I share this
Yeah,
out
that's so
because
great.
they deserve some attention as well. So Pet Peeves is I know that there's a sort of a horror element that's woven in. I know that
There
we
is.
have of course the animal element that's woven in as well. So anything without giving too much away that you want to share for readers out there that are curious about it.
Yeah, so Pet Peeves is a story about a musician, a girl who's graduated from college and is working a shitty bar job. She's a bartender and she's creative, but she is kind of lost because I think a lot of people after they go to art school or in this case music school, they get a lot of help learning to hone their craft, but they don't get a lot of guidance about how to build a career with that craft after you get out. And I think when you're in your 20s and you are in a creative field, And there is no direct line of like, you go to nursing school and then you're an RN and then you do this and then you do this and then you do this. And it's a very clear idea, excuse me, of how you're supposed to proceed after you get out of school. And for people who, most of us who have had school or parents dictating the next step every part of their life, you're all of a sudden on your own. And I think it's very easy to feel like you're stuck in childhood. And now all of a sudden you don't have anyone telling you what to do next. And so Bobby is supposed to be going out and figuring out her career and making connections and playing gigs, but it's really hard. And she's living with her old college roommate, but can't really afford the rent. So she lives just kind of in the corner of this apartment. Mm-hmm. She has some opportunities, but she doesn't always take them. And one night after, an encounter with a big ex, she goes on a bender, and on her way home from work meets this stray dog who follows her home, and she ends up adopting him. And he is this sort of force of nature taking over her life in both positive and negative ways, where he is giving her this companionship and support and love, but he's also destroying her relationships and her home and creating all these problems as animals do. And so it's really about the way that people or opportunities or things can come into your life and create a distraction or a toxic environment on your path to success or fulfillment, which is really more important. But and it's about being stuck. It's about being depressed. It's about self-sabotage. It's about manipulation and kind of toxic vampires in your life. And it's about a lot of things, but it is a little creepy. It is, which is something that's very funny to me. I've written, most of the things that I've written at this point are a little bit creepy or horror influenced in some way. And I would never have considered myself a horror kid. Like, I don't really watch horror movies. I love like gothic horror, vampire romance stuff, the old school stuff, Dracula and Frankenstein and that type of horror. And I love things that are just like a little bit creepy, but I'm not like a horror kid, really. And so it's very strange to me that everything that I end up writing has these like weird horror elements. I'm like, where's this coming from? There's some unexpressed need for horror in the human psyche that we must all have, but sometimes they're too afraid to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good, safe place to do that. And you mentioned just the character-centered nature of your work. So when you push a character to the edge of a cliff in life, there's something scary about that cliff. And it comes through in that way. Thinking again about like Everyone is Tulip, where it's like, okay, what if this personality and way of being is amplified to this degree?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's very easy to let outside influences take over and dictate your life and lose who you are in them. And I think both Everyone is Tulip and Pet Peeves are kind of about that.
And so when your name is on a book, I'm always excited because I know that I have the vision that's there. And I love the way that you also infuse these questions and the character centered nature of what you do as well. So recommending Pet Peeves, recommending anything that you're working on. And it sounds like you have lots of projects that are sort of in the mix that are upcoming. So no end in sight, I hope. The creative
Not for
pipeline.
a while, at least. It may be a minute until any of them actually come out, which is unfortunate. But the reality is, comics just take forever to make.
Right.
But I've got a setup for at least a few years now with more projects coming.
And so I know we have a web space we can follow for that. Do you have? I imagine you have a schedule of events and things like that with Pet Peeves. Anything that you want to throw out there for listeners that they can continue checking out?
Yeah, not a lot yet. I'm setting up some more signings and things, but I do have a signing this coming Wednesday, which is, I don't know when this episode will be coming out,
I'll
but
put it out soon.
it is May 31st, I believe, at Golden Apple Comics in LA at 11:30 to 2. So I will be there signing copies of Pet Peeves, and then I'm setting up a few other signings, which I will try to be very vocal about on social media.
Yeah. Since the book has just come out, I'll make sure to put this in the pipeline of releases a little bit sooner. So it'll be
Thank
up
you.
very soon and ahead of Wednesday's date.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk with me. Did I miss anything that you want to make sure to share with readers out there about your work
Um,
and
no,
comics?
I guess just that this is the first big project that is really just 100% me, and I'm very excited for people to read it and let me know what they think. Hopefully they like it. You know,
Oh yeah,
there's
yeah.
always a little trepidation when something you don't have anybody else to blame something on.
Oh yeah.
But I'm very excited about the book being out in the world, and like I said, I almost didn't even publish it because it is a personal story and it is kind of my first foray into writing something this complex. And, it is a little bit vulnerable to put something like that out in the world. And I hope everybody enjoys it and goes and buys it. That would be nice.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the bravery and the storytelling and appreciate what you do and what you bring to the medium. So, always glad to talk with you about your work and always glad to recommend it. I hope listeners out there will check out Pet Peeves as well as your array of previous works and upcoming works as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.